So I've got a few things I want to talk to you about today. The first is this, the separation between closed style and open style, British style, all this kind of stuff. Now, there are many schools of approach to club swinging. There are many names for the clubs, depending on their shape, where they are, where they've been made, and so on. So at Heroic Sport, we just separated everything into open style, which is, typically done with the light clubs, teardrops or liter and a half, anything that you can comfortably hold roughly at arm's length like this for, let's say 30 seconds at least. Okay, when it starts becoming heavier, then what we do is bring that club closer to the center of mass, to a midline, and becomes a closed style swing. So if I'm doing an inner swing that you're going to learn on day 4 with a closed style, it would be done like this. From order, I would be coming in, elevate my elbow, my arm is still straight because the club is light, and then it falls behind the back and goes into the next repetition. In the closed style, it's almost like you're separating the front portion of the swing and the back portion of the swing. So you would have, see, the elbow is connected here to my torso. Boom, it swings in front of the body. I reconnect the elbow to the torso, and then I do the back portion and reconnect the elbow. So, what we're doing in effect is bringing the club closer, reducing the forces, so we can work with heavier clubs. So more or less, that's the oversimplification of it. And actually the terms come from the certification that I took with Ivan Ivanov, who created the Bulgarian bag, where he did some of the spins with the straight arms and called that for the, the open style, and then with the bend in the elbow as you do the swings, which engage a lot more of the arm musculature. And if you think about wrestling, you want to keep the person close to control them and so on. So there's a lot of tension in the arms the whole time. And that was the closed style or closed style, because you're pulling in. So that's the same idea with the clubs. And that's why you'll see, if you're observant, on the front circles, there'll be a slight bend in the elbow as well. And of course, a lot of the time it's due because the clubs are long and tall, so you don't want to whack your toes, right? So for extra safety, to have enough clearance, you would keep that bend. But the other purpose is actually to activate more of the musculature in the arms at the same time. So different type of principles, but that's basically what you need to know about closed style, open style. So closed style is the heaviest clubs and open style is the light clubs. So what we're doing, in this short intro course is getting you geared up for the heavier type of club swinging, which can be just as complex as the light swings, but not as fancy, let's say, okay? So there will be a lot less work with the wrist, because you can't do that with a big heavy club. I mean, you can do the wrist circles up to a certain weight, but you're not going to do any fancy stuff, in front of the head and so on, like you'll see in some light club videos. So about if you want to go to a heavier bottle, 1.5 liters is what we recommend. Now it varies a lot, depending on the country. So, but the key thing to look for is that it's got some kind of a long, tall neck. Okay, if the bottle is very squashish and then just abruptly turns into where you put the screw, it usually bends. Now, like I said, 1.5 here in Denmark, it works. This bottle is from the Czech Republic. I think up to 2 kilos. I know some people in Germany using 2-liter bottles without any problem, because if the bottle is too soft, what's going to happen is that it's going to bend just around this section here of the neck, or wherever, even if it hasn't got a neck, if it's square, so it kind of flops about, and that can be inconvenient. So you have to play a little bit with the type of bottles that you find. Now, if you don't have sand, if you don't live near the beach, don't go and buy sand. Just go into somebody's driveway and scrape a bit of the gravel. It weighs roughly the same. Now, don't steal the gravel, but gravel might be a bit more accessible to you. It is to us. So gravel works as well. Now, the swings, when we do the swings, the thing is to try to maintain a constant speed. So you could actually be working with a metronome and always hitting that same tempo, same beat at the same spot, right? So that's so there's no whoosh acceleration and then stopping and then acceleration and so on. You want to maintain that same tempo in full control. And what you can think of is like you're trying to imagine you're swinging through water, okay? So you're creating a bit of extra resistance. So it's not just like whoosh, free falling, freewheeling down the highway, coasting, none of that. You want to maintain some little bit of tension, let's say, so you've got full control over the club, you can stop it and so on. Of course, the heavier it becomes, then the harder it's going to be. But as a general rule, you want to swing a bit more on the slower side than, going and spinning things around. If it is, it's just probably too light. Okay, so that's that. Now, another thing I want to cover is the points of reference. What is an inner swing? What is an outer swing? So, if we're doing a circle, we can do circles in two directions, right? This way or this way. When we start from the top and we cross the midline of the body, that's called an inner swing. When the club falls away from the midline, that's called an outer swing. Bonk. Yeah? So, and this applies to, the wrist circles, the elbow circles, and so on. So it's the same type of nomenclature, you could say. If we swing by the side of the body, so we can have a backward circle and a forward circle, okay? Very easy. Now, when we got two hands, oh, this one wants to play. When we got two hands on the club, okay? At our export, we teach that the bottom, the furthest down the handle, is your leading hand. This is your reference hand. So when I've got two hands on the club and I'm going this direction here, right? It's the same as if I'm holding one hand. So it makes it really easy and simple to understand and remember, okay? So from here, if I cross the midline, it was an inner circle. So if I got two hands on the club and I cross the midline, it's still the inner circle. Okay? And, as you learn more and you practice more with your clubs, everything you can do in one direction with one grip, you can, of course, do it in the other direction, and I encourage you to do so, okay? We only cover a few exercises in this basic course. If you go on our website, we've got a lot more video courses and programs if you like to train with kettlebells and so on, and there'll be a code at the end of the course as well. But the main thing is to remember that this is a change of direction, okay? And this is a change of grip. So if you've been doing, let's say, 10 circles with this grip, so the right on the bottom, going this direction, then you either, before you switch grips, you reverse the direction, and then when you come back to the, when you're ready to change hands, the grips, right? The first direction you did was the inner, so this time, crossing the midline, okay? Two hands on the club, same principle, okay? And then work both directions. So I hope this kind of makes sense. It's a bit of a detail, but it's good to know. Once you start going into more advanced figures and exercise, so you got a reference point. Like I said, we teach it this way. Other people and schools teach it another way, where they use the top hand as a reference, okay? But for us, it makes more sense. This is what I would do with one hand on the club. We keep that, and that we've got two hands, the club doesn't change anything to the to what we call inner or outer. Now, putting this into application, the inner circles, is based on an attack. So if we think of it, if we are, trying to kill somebody with a club, okay, it's crossing the midline. We're trying to cross the midline, okay? If you want to throw a spear, you're crossing the midline. So this is a throw, this is an attack. And if you think arm wrestling, okay, I win by crossing the midline, my midline, okay? This is the winner. I'm not as strong in the other direction, Okay, so if I can throw a spear like this, a lot of force, a heavy object, I'm not going to throw that far if I'm going like that. This is actually, you know, my dart throwing. So going away from the midline, we're using more of the small muscles around the shoulder girdle, less strength, you know, less power. Crossing the midline, I'm using the big muscles in front of the body here. You know, it's an oversimplification, but it kind of like makes it easy to remember. Why the inner is the strong, is the attack. The other one is the accuracy, you know, throwing the dart, not as strong. Boom. Hope that makes sense as well. It's a concept. And like I said, if you you know, if you want to learn more, and hopefully you will by the end of this course, knowing all these small kind of details helps you understand the whys and make your own mind up, you know, does something make sense? Should I use it or not? So the more you know, the better for your own sake. Okay. We're doing some, we did some exercise where we're using static holds, okay, in front of the body, in different, can be different type of holds. Yeah. They're not just beginner exercises, they're also important. So don't just get, you know, caught up by doing all the fancy swings. Also include more of the basic, let's say brutish exercises into your training for overall development of your shoulder strength, okay? So if this is too hard to hold, what we can do is, you know, choke the club. Reducing that distance here is going to make it a little bit easier, a bit more stable to balance, and you should be able to hold it. So there are ways we can play with the leverage, okay, which is great when if you're using the palavendal, especially if you've got two handles together. So you've got, you know, extra leverage, shorter leverage, and the principles you can play with if the weight is too heavy or if the weight is too light, you know, you increase the leverage. So you can still challenge yourself, okay? Now, with a lot of the club swinging, the goal is to basically achieve a type of a rhythmic, repetitive patterns at some stage. Of course, you can do flows where it's always changing from one to the next, but a lot of the time, a lot of the training, the ground training, I should say, will come from doing repetitions of the same thing. So we're grooving the neural connections, you know, so the movement becomes more fluid and smoother with time. And by doing that, by doing those repetitions, repetitive patterns, rhythmic, if you try to concentrate on keeping the same tempo and so on, helps you to switch your nervous system from that fight or flight response to the rest and digest. Okay, this is where we kind of like experience that calmness, that grounding, which is conducive to focus learning, you know, making better decisions and so on. And it really doesn't take that long, you know, to switch. Yeah, it might be a question of a few minutes, 2 or 3 minutes might be enough. Now, of course, in the beginning, you know, everything is complex, everything is new, and you might not experience that feeling of calmness, but it comes with practice. So keep trusting the process, you know, it should feel nice and relaxing. Okay, there's no need to rush to go to really heavy weights. This is why we made adjustable clubs, so you can sort of like take it in small step at a time. Don't rush and try to swing the heaviest club you can in a short time. You really need to build up, because you may know this or you may not, but your tendons and ligaments is basically the limiting factor. Your muscles have really got a lot of blood flow coming to them, so they grow strong and they repair fast. Now, your tendons and ligaments, it takes a long time to build them up. And if you injure them, it's going to take a long time to recover, because there's hardly any blood flow. So you'll be incapacitated for a month, not just a week or two, as would happen with a muscle strain or, you know, impact or something like that. So really take your time to build up the tolerance and the resilience. Yeah. So lightweight, lots of repetitions. And by lots of repetitions, you know, doing like we're doing a 10 minutes to 15 minutes, you build up quite a lot of repetitions. So, you know, and eventually maybe you'll be swinging like 20 minutes, 30 minutes non-stop. Now, I wouldn't advise going into, you know, this marathon type of training sessions that you might see a lot of people, you know, on social medias and YouTube and so on doing. It makes you, oh, I also want to do this, but just refrain from it. You know, do this once in a while. Don't use it as your main training method of training for like 30 minutes plus doing an exercise, right? Unless you want to participate in some kind of a sporting event where, you know, this is the requirement. Otherwise, you know, keep everything in balance. Has to also, you know, everything, let's say that everything adds up. The stress that you create in training adds up to the stress of your daily life. So if you're really busy, you got small kids and so on, you know, just, you should feel good. Like when you're done training, if you still feel good, if you got lots of energy after the training, you got a light sweat on your head, on your forehead, well, basically that's it. You know, you don't need much more. Of course, you know, this is like the balance aspect. Like I said, if you want to compete in something, you need to put more effort, but you'll know there will be a trade-off. Okay, so that's basically it. Now, hopefully, you're starting to see how the Indian clubs sort of like can help you help kids as well. Some people are training with their kids, which is fantastic. You know, they improve our physical literacy. So physical literacy, what it is? It's basically using your body as a means of expression. We've got locomotion aspect, we've got body control aspect, and then we've got object control. And that can be, you know, throwing, receiving, making sure that we're actually swinging in the proper plane, and so on. So they really tick a lot of boxes, you know. Right now we're training mainly static, just working on getting the groove. But once you know the exercise, you know, you'll be able to move and carry on in the flow. So you got to think about all the circles that we are playing with, that you're getting introduced to, as the alphabet. Right? Once you know the alphabet, then you can start writing a few words, and then you can write whole sentences or poetry or whatever you want with it. Okay? So just focus on getting that alphabet now, getting the neural connections. You know, everything feels smooth and fluid, and then it's really going to pay off in the end. So stick to the simple stuff for a while, maybe for a little bit longer than you think. And then you'll be able to progress a lot faster than if you try to work with 2 clubs at once from the beginning. Okay, so by going single club, we're really making that learning process faster. We increasing our skills way faster than if you try doing it with 2 clubs from the start. Of course, there'll be exceptions. There are people that just pick up things like really fast. But you know, I've been teaching clubs roughly since 2010, where I did the first few workshops and so on. So, and I've ran classes, weekly classes for some years, and so on. So I've seen the different, you know, different ways of teaching. I've tried different ways of teaching. This is what really I think works best. Okay. Now, are there any bad moves? Possibly. Okay, especially if you got some injury or old injuries, old aches and pains and so on, you have to take it nice and easy. So that means, you know, go easy with the weight, don't rush, like I said before, the progression. You can change a few parameters of how you're doing the swings, right? So of course the first thing is do less work, so less repetitions. Always work in a controlled speed and only do a few exercises at a time. So you sort of like know if you get a reaction, you know, later during the day or the following day, you can sort of like more or less pinpoint which move created the problem, right? If you did like 100 exercises today and was it because I did too much or was there an exercise that created the problem? So go from that perspective, you know, narrowing everything down so you can figure out which move was wrong for you. And then, you know, you can reduce the amplitude of the movement. So instead of doing a big circle, going all the way up, then you just like cut it short maybe and see how that goes, right? So reducing the range of motion is one thing. The control speed, you know, is another thing. The volume of how much you're doing and so on. It really, you know, your body will let you know if this is right or wrong for you. There's no way for me as a trainer or a physio to tell you you have to do this and this is going to give you the results that you're after. You're going to be pain-free and so on. It's just really trial and error. So, you know, take it nice and easy. Hopefully the stuff that I show you in the course is, you know, opening your eyes on how you can sort of make the small progressions. We're not rushing. And then, you know, take it from there.